Weed, cannabis, marijuana, whatever you call it, it's one of the most talked about and widely used drugs in the world. But how does it really affect your brain? Where did it start? And why do some people get addicted? Stick around because today, we're breaking down the science of weed and its impact on the brain. Weed has been used for thousands of years. The first recorded use dates back to ancient China, around 2800 BC, where it was used for medicinal and spiritual purposes. The Chinese Emperor Shennong, known as the father of Chinese medicine, documented cannabis as a treatment for pain, inflammation, and even mental disorders. From there, its use expanded. In India, cannabis became deeply intertwined with religious and cultural traditions. It was often consumed in a drink called bhang, which was believed to have healing and mind-expanding properties. The Middle East also embraced cannabis, particularly in Persia, where scholars and healers wrote about its effects on relaxation and creativity. As trade routes expanded, cannabis found its way to Europe and the Americas. By the 19th century, Western medicine had recognized marijuana's potential benefits, using it as a treatment for pain, nausea, and even epilepsy. However, attitudes toward cannabis shifted drastically in the early 20th century. In the United States, the Mexican Revolution of 1910 led to an increase in Mexican immigration, and with it, the recreational use of marijuana. Anti-immigrant sentiment fueled propaganda campaigns that linked cannabis use to crime and violence, eventually leading to the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937, which effectively banned its use. Despite prohibition, cannabis use continued underground. The 1960s saw a resurgence in popularity among counterculture movements, and by the late 20th and early 21st centuries, the conversation around marijuana had shifted again. Today, many countries and states have decriminalized or legalized marijuana for medical and recreational use, yet debates around its impact and regulation continue. So, what happens when you smoke weed? The active chemical in cannabis is THC, or tetrahydrocannabinol. This compound interacts with the brain's endocannabinoid system, specifically the CB1 receptors in areas responsible for memory, pleasure, coordination, and time perception. That's why after smoking, people often feel relaxed, euphoric, or even paranoid. But there's more. Long-term use can actually alter brain chemistry, especially in younger users. Studies show that chronic cannabis use can lead to memory problems, reduced motivation, and in some cases, even an increased risk of mental health disorders like anxiety and depression. Additionally, some studies suggest that excessive cannabis use could lead to structural changes in the brain, particularly in areas related to learning and decision-making. Moreover, weed can affect sleep cycles. While some users report using it to help with sleep, research shows that heavy cannabis use can disrupt REM sleep, which is essential for cognitive function and emotional regulation. Over time, this can lead to increased stress and difficulty concentrating. There's also the issue of impaired coordination and slowed reaction times, which is why driving under the influence of marijuana can be extremely dangerous. Studies have shown that THC affects motor skills and decision-making, increasing the risk of accidents. A lot of people say, weed isn't addictive. But science tells a different story. While it's true that marijuana isn't as physically addictive as heroin or nicotine, it can be psychologically addictive. About 9% of users develop cannabis use disorder, a condition where they struggle to control their usage despite negative effects on their life. For those who start using in their teens, that number jumps to 17%. The brain's reward system is heavily involved. THC overstimulates the dopamine system, which makes people feel good, but over time, the brain starts to rely on weed to produce those feel-good chemicals. That's when dependence starts, and for some, quitting becomes extremely difficult. Withdrawal symptoms can also be a challenge. Users who try to quit may experience irritability, insomnia, appetite changes, anxiety, and mood swings. These symptoms, though not as severe as withdrawal from harder drugs, can still make quitting difficult for long-term users. Some users also experience intense cravings, making relapse more likely. Teenagers and young adults are the most vulnerable to weed's long-term effects. Why? Because their brains are still developing. The prefrontal cortex, which controls decision-making and impulse control, isn't fully matured until the mid-20s. So, regular use at a young age can rewire the brain in ways that lead to cognitive impairments and increased addiction risk. Additionally, studies show that individuals with a family history of substance abuse are more likely to develop a dependency on cannabis. Environmental factors, such as peer influence and mental health conditions like depression and anxiety, can also increase the likelihood of developing problematic use. There's also a link between cannabis use and an increased risk of developing schizophrenia in individuals predisposed to the condition. While not everyone who smokes weed will experience psychosis, research suggests that frequent use, especially of high-potency THC strains, may trigger symptoms in those already vulnerable. Now, let's be clear, weed isn't the same for everyone. Some people use it for medical reasons, like pain relief and anxiety management, and in controlled doses, it can be beneficial. But the risks, especially for young users, are real. The key is education and moderation. For those considering marijuana use, it's important to understand its potential risks and benefits. While legalization has made access easier, responsible use is critical to avoid negative consequences. Understanding personal limits, seeking medical advice, and being aware of one's mental health are essential steps in making informed decisions. So, what do you think? Should we be more regulated? Have you or someone you know struggled with cannabis dependence? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.